In a world where the line between the living and the dead is thinner than it should be, there are things that don't stay buried, and secrets that refuse to fade. Sai, the Talisman Walker, follows Jian Mo, a lone talisman walker who travels between forgotten places, uncovering ancient horrors sealed away by time. He doesn't hunt ghosts, he investigates what shouldn't exist, confronting forces bound by rituals, curses, and lost knowledge. Each case begins with something simple: a village rumor, a strange disappearance, an abandoned place no one dares to enter. But beneath every mystery lies something far more dangerous: entities that don't follow the rules of life or death. Jian Mo is not a hero, he is a witness, because some things cannot be destroyed, only delayed. As he dives deeper into hidden formations and forbidden practices, Jian Mo begins to uncover a larger truth. These horrors are not isolated. They are connected, and something somewhere is slowly awakening. This is not just a story about fear. It's a story about what happens when the past refuses to stay buried. The rain began just after midnight. Heavy drops hammered against the ancient mountain temple, while cold wind whispered through the pine trees surrounding it. Inside the prayer hall, dozens of candles flickered weakly beneath old Taoist statues. And at the center of the room sat Master Wei, one of the most respected Taoists in the region, completely motionless. At first, his disciples believed he was meditating. But after 3 days without movement, without food, without even speaking, fear slowly spread through the temple. Because Master Wei was still alive, his chest still rose with slow breaths, his heart still beat, yet something inside him was missing. One young disciple finally stepped forward and touched the old Taoist's shoulder. The moment Master Wei lifted his head, the boy stumbled backward in terror. The old man's eyes were empty, not blind, not possessed, just hollow, like a living body abandoned by its soul. That was when they summoned Jian Mo. But after examining the Taoist, Jian Mo discovered something impossible. The soul had not been stolen, it had escaped willingly, and somewhere in the darkness beyond the temple, something was waiting for the body to become empty forever. The mountain temple stood far beyond the last village road, hidden beneath layers of cold mist and ancient pine trees. Travelers rarely came there unless they were desperate. The locals believed the temple sat on cursed land, where the boundary between the living and the dead had grown dangerously thin over centuries. For decades, the temple had been protected by one man, Master Wei. Stories about him spread across the northern provinces like ghost tales whispered around funeral fires. Some claimed he once sealed an entire cemetery after restless spirits clawed their way from the earth during a lunar eclipse. Others believed he could walk into haunted houses and force demons to kneel simply by chanting scripture. Whether the stories were true or not, one thing was certain: people feared him almost as much as they respected him. That was why the disciples could not understand what had happened. Jian Mo arrived at the temple shortly before dawn. Rainwater dripped from the edges of his dark coat as he climbed the stone stairs toward the prayer hall. The moment he entered the temple grounds, he felt it immediately. Silence. Not ordinary silence. A heavy stillness that pressed against the skin. Even the insects in the forest had stopped making noise. Several young disciples waited nervously near the entrance. Their faces were pale from exhaustion and fear. One of them stepped forward quickly. "Please, you must help him." Jian Mo said nothing. The disciple led him through narrow corridors lined with ancient talismans and burned incense. Candlelight flickered weakly against old wooden walls covered in faded scripture. Every person inside the temple moved carefully, speaking in whispers as if afraid something might overhear them. Then Jian Mo entered the prayer hall. Master Wei sat before the altar completely motionless. At first glance, he looked normal. His breathing was slow but steady. His skin was not cold. His body showed no signs of illness or injury. But his eyes, empty, like abandoned windows staring into nothingness. Jian Mo approached slowly and placed 2 fingers against the Taoist master's forehead. He began whispering an old spirit detection incantation under his breath. Nothing happened. No spiritual resistance, no corruption, no possession. The body felt hollow. One of the disciples nervously explained what happened. 3 nights ago, Master Wai returned from Black Pine Village. Another disciple continued. He locked himself inside the scripture chamber and refused to see anyone. We heard him speaking to someone, but there was nobody inside. The youngest disciple swallowed hard before speaking again. Then, the next morning, he was like this. Jian Mo studied the old Taoist carefully. A soul could be stolen, destroyed, consumed, even trapped. But this was different. He pressed a yellow talisman against Master Wai's chest and activated it with a drop of blood. The paper immediately turned gray and crumbled into ash. Jian Mo's expression darkened. The disciples stared at him anxiously. One finally asked the question none of them wanted answered. Is he possessed? Jian Mo slowly shook his head. No, the room fell silent. Then Jian Mo spoke the words that made every disciple in the hall feel cold. His soul is gone. A candle suddenly extinguished behind them. Then another. And somewhere deep within the temple, wood began scratching against wood, like someone drawing symbols in the dark. The scratching sound continued somewhere inside the temple, slow, deliberate, like a brush dragging itself across wood. The disciples froze in fear, staring into the dark hallway beyond the prayer hall. One of them whispered a prayer under his breath, while another tightened his grip on a bundle of talismans. Jian Mo turned toward the sound immediately. "Stay here," he said quietly, but none of them wanted to remain alone. The disciples followed closely behind him as he moved through the narrow corridors of the temple. The candle flames along the walls flickered violently as if reacting to an invisible presence moving nearby. Every step deeper into the temple made the air feel colder. The scratching became louder. Scratch! 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 It was coming from Master Wai's private scripture chamber. The wooden door stood half open. Ink stains covered the floor beneath it. Jian Mo slowly pushed the door wider and stopped. The room looked as if someone had gone mad inside it. Ancient scriptures were scattered everywhere. Burned talismans covered the walls. Symbols had been carved directly into the wooden floorboards with enough force to leave deep marks in the wood. At the center of the room stood a long altar table, and across it, hundreds of unfinished talismans. But something about them was wrong. Very wrong. One disciple carefully picked up a piece of yellow paper and immediately dropped it in fear. These aren't protection seals. Jian Mo took the talisman and examined the writing carefully. His expression darkened. The symbols belonged to an old summoning art forbidden centuries ago. Unlike ordinary Taoist seals used to repel spirits, these symbols were designed to call entities into the human world. Invite them. Welcome them. One talisman in particular caught his attention. Its center symbol had been written in fresh black ink that still glistened under candlelight. The invocation mark was incomplete, as if whoever drew it had been interrupted. Then Jian Mo noticed something beside the altar, a journal. Its pages were torn and stained with ash. He opened it slowly. At first, the entries were normal. Master Wei described his journey to Black Pine Village and the cleansing ritual requested by the villagers. He wrote about strange noises beneath the ancestral shrine and an unnatural cold spreading through the village after sunset. But the further Jian Mo read, the worse the entries became. The knocking starts after midnight. I hear breathing beneath the floor. It knows my voice. Several pages later, the handwriting became shaky and uneven. It followed me home. The mirrors are no longer safe. Then one final sentence had been written across an entire page in frantic black strokes. If my soul leaves, do not force it back. The room suddenly fell silent. Even the scratching sound had stopped. One of the disciples nervously looked around. What does that mean? Before Jian Mo could answer, all the candles inside the chamber extinguished at once. Darkness swallowed the room instantly. The disciples panicked. Someone stumbled backward into a shelf of scriptures. Another began chanting prayers desperately. Then, from somewhere directly behind them, came the sound of wet ink dripping onto wood. Jian Mo slowly turned. At the far end of the chamber stood a figure in complete darkness. Tall, motionless, holding a brush. Lightning flashed outside the temple windows for a single second. And in that brief white flash, they saw Master Wei standing upright. His empty eyes stared directly at them. Black ink covered his hands. The brush trembled weakly between his fingers. And behind him on the wall, a massive summoning symbol had been drawn in fresh ink. One disciple screamed. Master Wei's body moved unnaturally, like stiff limbs being pulled by invisible strings. Slowly, he raised the brush again and continued drawing the final lines of the symbol across the wall. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Jian Mo immediately threw a talisman toward him. The paper exploded into golden flame upon impact. But Master Wei did not react, because there was no soul inside him to feel pain, no fear, no awareness, only an empty body continuing a ritual it should never have known. Then, without warning, the old Taoist stopped moving. The brush slipped from his fingers, and in a broken whisper that sounded barely human, the body spoke. Do not let it enter. The entire temple shook violently, and somewhere beneath the floorboards, something knocked back. The knocking beneath the floorboards stopped as suddenly as it began. Silence flooded the scripture chamber once again. Master Wei's empty body stood motionless near the wall, his fingers still stained with black ink. The unfinished summoning symbol stretched behind him like a wound carved directly into the temple itself. Then his body collapsed. The disciples rushed backward in panic as the old Taoist hit the wooden floor with a sickening crack. His limbs twisted unnaturally beneath him, yet somehow his chest still rose and fell with shallow breaths. Alive, but not truly living. Jian Mo stepped closer carefully. The room smelled different now. Not like incense, not like ash. Something wet, ancient, like soil taken from a grave after heavy rain. He crouched beside the body and noticed strange bruises forming beneath Master Wei's skin. Thin black veins slowly spread across his neck like roots growing under the flesh. One disciple whispered nervously, "Is something entering him?" Jian Mo didn't answer immediately. Instead, he examined the unfinished summoning mark on the wall. His expression darkened. "This isn't random," he finally said. The disciples stared at him. "What do you mean?" Jian Mo pointed toward the symbol. "Look closely." At first, the tangled strokes appeared chaotic, but after several seconds, the disciples began noticing repeating patterns hidden inside the ink lines, circles within circles. Invocation seals layered together, old Taoist characters twisted into forbidden symbols that had been deliberately concealed beneath ordinary scripture. It wasn't a single talisman. It was part of something larger, a ritual. And then Jian Mo realized something horrifying. The symbol on the wall was incomplete because it was never meant to be drawn in one place. It was only one piece. He immediately stood up. "Search the temple." The disciples hesitated. "Now!" They split apart quickly, carrying candles and protective charms into the dark corridors. Rain continued hammering against the temple roof, while thunder echoed through the mountains outside. Minutes later, the first scream came from the eastern prayer hall. Jian Mo rushed toward the sound. A disciple stood frozen near the entrance, pointing shakily at the floor. Another summoning symbol, this one drawn beneath the prayer mats in black ink. Half finished. Then another disciple shouted from the kitchen hall. A third symbol had been carved beneath the wooden ceiling beams. Jian Mo's heartbeat slowed. Not from calmness, from dread. Every symbol was connected. Each one formed a section of a massive spiritual formation hidden throughout the temple itself. Someone, or something, had been building the ritual piece by piece, and Master Wei's empty body was still continuing it. Suddenly, the temple bell rang once. A deep metallic sound echoed through the corridors. Every disciple froze. The bell tower had been abandoned for years. No one was up there. The bell rang again. Dong! This time, it sounded wrong, distorted, as if the sound itself were rotting. Jian Mo ran toward the courtyard. Rain poured heavily from the black sky as lightning illuminated the ancient temple grounds in brief flashes of white. The bell tower stood at the far end of the courtyard, and someone was climbing it. The disciples looked up in horror. Master Wei's body moved slowly up the wooden stairs barefoot, leaving dark, wet footprints behind him. His movements were jerky and unnatural, like invisible hands were pulling him upward one step at a time. In one hand, he carried the brush. In the other, fresh talisman paper. "Stop him!" one disciple shouted. Two disciples rushed forward, but Jian Mo grabbed them immediately. "Don't touch him!" The old Taoist suddenly stopped climbing. Then his head turned almost completely backward. Bones cracked loudly beneath the skin. His hollow eyes locked onto the disciples below. And then he smiled. Not kindly, not human, just a slow, unnatural stretching of the mouth that revealed ink-black teeth. The temple bell rang again by itself. Dong! At that exact moment, every candle inside the temple extinguished simultaneously. Darkness swallowed the entire mountain temple. Then came the whispering, hundreds of voices speaking at once beneath the storm. Some sounded old, some sounded like children. Others sounded like something trying and failing to imitate human speech. The disciples covered their ears in terror. One collapsed to his knees crying. And above them all, standing inside the bell tower, Master Wei's empty body raised the brush toward the stormy sky and began drawing symbols in the air itself. Each movement left glowing red trails suspended in the darkness. The final part of the ritual. Jian Mo finally understood the pattern. The summoning ritual wasn't calling a wandering ghost. It was preparing the temple to receive something far worse. Something intelligent, something ancient. And whatever Master Wei encountered in Black Pine Village, it had followed him home. Another thunderclap shook the mountains. Then for one brief second, lightning illuminated the forest beyond the temple walls. And Jian Mo saw figures standing silently between the trees, watching, waiting, not moving, as if the ritual had already begun calling them closer. Jian Mo left the mountain temple before sunrise. The storm had weakened, but thick fog still clung to the forest paths surrounding the mountains. Every step through the mud felt heavier than usual, as if the darkness itself were resisting him. Behind him, the temple bell continued ringing at irregular intervals. Duel! Each distant strike echoed through the valleys like a warning. By midday, Jian Mo reached Black Pine Village. The place looked abandoned. Most of the houses were sealed shut with wooden boards and faded charms nailed above the doors. Smoke no longer rose from the chimneys. Even the animals were missing. No dogs barked. No children played outside. Only silence. The village sat beneath enormous black pine trees that blocked much of the sunlight, casting long shadows over the narrow dirt roads. Jian Mo immediately noticed old protective talismans hanging from nearly every window. Most had already turned gray with age. Veiled. A single old woman watched him from beside a well near the center of the village. Her expression changed the moment she saw the Taoist talismans hanging from Jian Mo's coat. "You came from the mountain temple," she whispered. Jian Mo nodded. "You know what happened to Master Wei?" The woman looked away immediately. Fear spread across her face. "I told him not to go beneath the shrine," she said softly. Jian Mo stepped closer. "What is beneath it?" The old woman remained silent for several seconds before finally speaking again, something that should never have been disturbed. The villagers slowly emerged from their homes one by one, drawn by the conversation. Their faces looked exhausted, hollow, like people who had not slept properly in weeks. One man finally spoke. "It started 3 months ago." Another villager continued. "Children heard knocking beneath the shrine floor at night. Then people began seeing figures standing between the trees, watching the houses." An elderly man pointed toward the center of the village, where an ancient ancestral shrine stood beneath the pine trees. "We thought it was angry spirits, but Master Wei said it was something older." Jian Mo approached the shrine carefully. The structure was ancient, built from dark wood, almost black with age. Dozens of incense sticks burned before the altar, though none of the smoke rose normally. Instead, the smoke drifted downward toward the ground, as if the earth itself were breathing it in. Then Jian Mo saw the marks. Scratches, long claw-like lines carved into the stone steps leading inside. Not animal marks, human fingernails. Inside the shrine, the air felt unnaturally cold. Ancestral tablets lined the walls beside faded prayer banners. At the center of the room sat a large stone altar covered in offerings that had long since rotted. But the floor beneath the altar had been broken open. Someone had forced their way underground. One villager swallowed nervously. That's where Master Wei went. Alone. Jian Mo lit a lantern and stepped toward the opening. A narrow staircase descended into darkness beneath the shrine. The stone steps were damp and uneven, disappearing deep underground. The villagers refused to follow him. Even standing near the entrance terrified them. Jian Mo descended alone. The temperature dropped immediately. The deeper he traveled, the stronger the smell became. Wet earth, burned incense, and something else, something rotten beneath it all. His lantern illuminated old symbols carved into the walls. Ancient Taoist scripture covered nearly every surface, though much of it had been violently scratched apart, like someone had tried desperately to destroy the seals from the inside. The tunnel eventually opened into a massive underground chamber. Jian Mo stopped walking. The walls were covered in thousands of talismans, not protected ones, containment seals. At the center of the chamber stood a black coffin wrapped tightly in rusted chains. Every chain had been covered with old prayer paper, stained dark brown with dried blood. Most disturbing of all, the coffin lid stood slightly open. Jian Mo approached slowly. Then he noticed another symbol carved into the stone floor around the coffin. A soul separation ritual. Ancient. Forbidden. His eyes narrowed. The ritual allowed a person to separate their soul from their body without dying completely, but the technique had been banned centuries ago because of what usually followed. Madness, possession, or worse. Suddenly, Jian Mo heard movement behind him. He spun around instantly, but nobody stood there, only darkness. Then came the whisper, soft, breathing directly beside his ear. He opened it. Jian Mo turned sharply toward the coffin. The lid had moved, only slightly, but enough. A freezing wind exploded through the chamber, extinguishing his lantern instantly. Darkness swallowed everything. Then the knocking began again, not beneath the floorboards this time, from inside the coffin. Knock, knock, knock. Jian Mo immediately placed a talisman against the coffin lid and whispered an incantation under his breath. The paper ignited bright gold for several seconds before suddenly turning black. Something inside was resisting the seal. Then, he noticed writing carved into the inside walls of the chamber. Fresh writing, not ancient, Master Wei's handwriting. Jian Mo relit the lantern with shaking hands and read the message carefully. I was wrong. It does not possess the living. It waits for invitation. Below those words was another line carved so deeply into the stone that blood still stained the cracks. It followed me after I looked into the mirror. Jian Mo frowned. Mirror? His lantern light slowly moved across the chamber, and there, hidden behind the coffin in the darkness, stood an old bronze mirror taller than a man. Its surface was completely black, not reflective, almost liquid. Jian Mo stepped closer carefully. Then the surface moved. A face slowly appeared inside the mirror. Master Wei, terrified, pale. His mouth moved silently at first. Then Jian Mo finally heard the whisper. Do not let me return. The mirror suddenly cracked from top to bottom, and behind Jian Mo, something inside the coffin began laughing. The laughter inside the coffin stopped the moment Jian Mo placed another talisman against the lid. The underground chamber fell silent again. But this silence felt worse, heavier, alive. The cracked mirror behind him reflected nothing now except darkness. Yet Jian Mo could still feel Master Wei's presence lingering somewhere beyond its surface. Watching, waiting. He stepped backward carefully, never taking his eyes off the coffin. Then the chains around it moved. Not much. Just enough to produce a faint metallic sound in the darkness. Jian Mo immediately realized something terrifying. The seals around the coffin were weakening, and they had been weakening long before Master Wei ever arrived at Black Pine Village. The soul separation ritual carved into the floor suddenly made sense. This thing inside the coffin did not break into bodies by force. It waited for invitation. It waited for emptiness. An empty vessel, a body without a soul. Jian Mo slowly turned back toward the cracked mirror. The surface trembled slightly like disturbed water. Then Master Wei appeared again. This time, clearer. The old Taoist looked exhausted beyond words. His face was pale and hollow, and behind him stretched an endless black emptiness without sky or ground. Not the afterlife, not the spirit realm, something between worlds. Master Wei spoke weakly. You should not have come here. Jian Mo stared at him carefully. What did you release? Master Wei lowered his eyes. I didn't release it. His voice trembled. I looked at it. The chamber grew colder. Jian Mo waited silently. Then Master Wei finally began telling the truth. When the villagers discovered the underground chamber, they believed it contained the remains of an ancient Taoist executioner. He was once tasked with hunting corrupted spirits during the old dynasties. Thousands feared him. Master Wei's expression darkened. But eventually, he began using forbidden rituals, not to destroy evil, to survive it. Jian Mo listened carefully while distant knocking echoed softly from inside the coffin again. Knock, knock. Master Wei continued. The executioner discovered something terrifying during his rituals. He learned that possession becomes almost impossible if the soul willingly abandons the body first. Jian Mo frowned. A hollow vessel. Master Wei nodded slowly. So he separated his own soul from his body. But the ritual failed. His soul became trapped between worlds, while his empty body remained behind. The old Taoist voice weakened further, and over time, something else found the empty vessel. The cracked mirror suddenly darkened around Master Wei's reflection. Shapes moved behind him in the endless darkness. Watching Jian Mo, Master Wei continued speaking quickly now, almost desperately. When I entered the chamber, I thought the containment seals were meant to imprison a spirit, but they were actually imprisoning the body. Jian Mo's heartbeat slowed. The realization struck him all at once. The thing inside the coffin was not the executioner's soul. It was whatever entered afterward. Master Wei closed his eyes. I made a mistake. I looked into the mirror. The chamber trembled slightly. Instantly, Jian Mo understood. The mirror was not a reflection. It was a doorway, a bridge between the soul and the body. Master Wei opened his eyes again. The moment I looked into it, it saw me. It followed me back to the temple. Jian Mo remembered the summoning symbols drawn across the walls, the empty body climbing the bell tower, the voices whispering through the darkness. The entity had never fully possessed Master Wei. It was waiting for permission, waiting for the soul to leave. And that's why you abandoned your body, Jian Mo said quietly. Master Wei nodded. The old Taoist looked ashamed. I forced my soul out before it could enter me completely. I thought if the vessel remained empty, it would lose interest. But I was wrong. The knocking inside the coffin grew louder. Knock, knock, knock. The chains rattled violently now. Master Wei's voice shook with fear. An empty body does not remain empty forever. The longer it waits, the easier it becomes for something else to enter. Jian Mo's expression hardened. The summoning ritual. Master Wei nodded again. My body is finishing the invitation by instinct. The entity is teaching it how to welcome the door fully open. Suddenly, the mirror cracked even further. A long black fracture spread directly across Master Wei's face. The old Taoist looked over his shoulder in terror, as if something behind him had started moving closer. Then Jian Mo heard it too. Breathing, not from the coffin, from inside the mirror itself, slow, wet, ancient. Master Wei grabbed the edge of the mirror from within the darkness. For the first time, genuine panic filled his eyes. You must destroy my body before nightfall. Jian Mo remained silent. If the ritual finishes, Master Wei whispered, it won't just enter me. It will enter the temple, the disciples, the mountain. His voice cracked. And once it crosses fully into this world, it will never need another vessel again. The chamber suddenly shook violently. One of the chains around the coffin snapped loudly. Clang! The lid shifted open another inch. Darkness poured from the gap like smoke. Then a voice emerged from inside the coffin. Calm, smiling. You left your body, but you left the door open. Master Wei's face twisted in horror. The mirror began bleeding black liquid down its surface. Jian Mo stepped backward immediately, gripping several talismans tightly. Then Master Wei said the one thing Jian Mo never expected to hear. You cannot save me anymore. The old Taoist slowly lowered his head. When you return to the temple, burn my body. The mirror exploded. Jian Mo barely escaped the underground chamber before the entire shrine began shaking behind him. The villagers waiting outside saw him emerge from the darkness covered in dust and ash, his face pale beneath the lantern light. Before anyone could ask what happened, a deafening sound erupted beneath the village. Da-ong! The temple bell. Even from miles away, its distorted ringing rolled through the mountains like thunder. Jian Mo's eyes widened. The ritual had already progressed further than he feared. Without saying another word, he rushed back toward the mountain temple. The journey through the forest felt wrong from the very beginning. The trees no longer moved naturally. Branches twisted slowly despite the absence of wind. Strange shapes stood motionless deeper within the woods, vanishing whenever Jian Mo tried to look directly at them. Then came the whisper. At first, it sounded distant, almost impossible to hear. But the closer he got to the temple, the louder the voices became. Hundreds of overlapping whispers drifting through the trees. Some begged for help, others laughed quietly, and beneath all of them, one voice kept repeating the same sentence. The door is opening. Jian Mo tightened his grip around the talismans inside his sleeve and continued climbing the mountain path. By the time the temple appeared through the fog, night had already fallen completely, and the mountain temple no longer looked human. Every window glowed with dim red light. The prayer banners hanging from the rooftops twisted violently despite the still air. Black ink symbols covered the outer walls, stretching across the wood like veins spreading through flesh. The main gate stood open, but none of the disciples were waiting outside. Silence filled the courtyard. No insects, no wind, no movement, only the slow sound of water dripping somewhere in the dark. Jian Mo stepped carefully through the entrance. The moment he crossed into the courtyard, the gate slammed shut behind him. Boom! The entire temple trembled. Then every candle around the courtyard ignited simultaneously with green fire. Jian Mo immediately sensed it. The barrier had been completed. The mountain temple was no longer just a building. It had become part of the summoning ritual itself. Suddenly, a weak voice echoed from somewhere nearby. Help! Jian Mo turned sharply. One of the young disciples crawled out from beneath the collapsed prayer hall stairs. Blood covered his robes, and terror completely filled his face. They're gone, he whispered. What happened? Jian Mo demanded. The disciple struggled to breathe. He called them into the hall. At first, it still looked like Master Wei. The young man began trembling violently. But then it started changing. Jian Mo felt cold dread settle into his chest. Where is it now? The disciple slowly raised a shaking hand toward the main prayer hall. The enormous wooden doors stood slightly open. Darkness moved inside. Not shadows, movement, like something breathing within the room itself. Then the disciple suddenly grabbed Jian Mo's sleeve. Tears streamed down his face. Don't let it speak to you. Before Jian Mo could respond, the disciple's body jerked violently backward. Something unseen dragged him screaming into the darkness beneath the stairs. His nails clawed against the stone floor desperately. Then silence. Only blood remained. Jian Mo immediately threw 3 talismans into the darkness. Golden flames exploded beneath the staircase, illuminating dozens of human-like shapes packed tightly underneath the temple foundation. Their bodies bent unnaturally. Their mouths hung open too wide, and every face looked identical. Master Wei, the flames extinguished instantly. Darkness swallowed them again. Then footsteps echoed slowly from inside the prayer hall. Jian Mo turned toward the doors. Master Wei's body stepped into view, but it was no longer fully human. Black veins pulsed beneath pale skin. His arms bent slightly too long, fingers twitching like spider legs. Ink continuously leaked from his mouth and dripped onto the wooden floor. Worst of all, his hollow eyes were no longer empty. Something stared out from inside them now. Something ancient. Something aware. The creature smiled slowly. Your friend refuses to come home, it said using Master Wei's voice. Its mouth moved unnaturally wide with each word. Jian Mo silently prepared several talismans. The entity tilted its head. You should have let the soul return. Thunder exploded across the mountains outside. Then all the bells throughout the temple began ringing violently on their own. Dong! 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 The sound became unbearable. The walls trembled, wood cracked, and suddenly black liquid began pouring from the ceilings like rain. Jian Mo looked upward in horror. Faces were pressing through the wooden walls, dozens of them. Human faces trapped beneath the surface of the temple itself, silently screaming as they pushed against the wood from the inside. The entity spread its arms slowly. You humans fear possession, it whispered. but empty things. Its smile widened impossibly far, always begged to be filled. Then the floor beneath Jian Mo cracked open, and hundreds of pale hands reached upward from the darkness below. The pale hands exploded upward from the cracked floorboards, grabbing Jian Mo's legs and dragging him toward the darkness beneath the temple. Their fingers felt ice cold, dead. Dozens of whispering voices surrounded him at once. "Stay! Join us! Empty yourself!" Jian Mo slammed a blood talisman against the floor. Golden fire erupted outward in a violent circle, instantly burning through the grasping hands. The screaming that followed did not sound human. It echoed beneath the temple like hundreds of trapped souls crying out from underground. The entity inside Master Wei's body only smiled wider. Black liquid continued dripping from its mouth, while the walls around the prayer hall pulsed like living flesh. "You cannot close the door anymore," it whispered. The ceiling above them cracked open. Darkness poured downward, like smoke from another world. Jian Mo quickly pulled a red thread from inside his sleeve and wrapped it around his wrist. Then he pressed 2 fingers against his forehead and began chanting an ancient soul-binding incantation. The air inside the hall immediately changed. The candles burned violently sideways. The entity's smile slowly faded, because somewhere inside the darkness surrounding the temple, Master Wei's soul had heard the call. Jian Mo spoke louder now. "Master Wei! Return before the bridge collapses completely." For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the bells stopped ringing. Silence swallowed the mountain, and behind the possessed body, a faint human figure slowly appeared. Transparent, weak, Master Wei. The old Taoist soul looked barely stable, flickering like candlelight in heavy wind. His face twisted in horror as he stared at his own corrupted body standing before him. The entity noticed him immediately. Its head snapped backward with a loud crack. "No," it hissed. The walls trembled violently. The black smoke pouring from the ceiling suddenly rushed toward Master Wei's spirit like starving animals sensing prey. Jian Mo immediately stepped between them and activated another talisman. A wall of golden fire erupted across the prayer hall. The entity screamed furiously. For the first time, its voice no longer sounded human. It sounded ancient, broken, like multiple creatures screaming together through the same mouth. "You abandoned your flesh," it roared at Master Wei. "You invited me inside." Master Wei lowered his head in shame. "I know." The old Taoist slowly looked toward Jian Mo. Tears filled his eyes. "Do it now." Jian Mo hesitated because he understood what the old man truly meant. Destroy the vessel, destroy the body, end everything permanently. The entity sensed his hesitation instantly. Its smile returned. "You still think he can be saved?" Suddenly, the possessed body lunged forward with impossible speed. Its bones cracked violently as its arms stretched unnaturally long, fingers twisting into claw-like shapes. Jian Mo barely blocked the attack with a talisman barrier before being thrown across the hall into a wooden pillar. The entire temple shook. Outside, thunder exploded over the mountains. The summoning symbols carved throughout the temple walls began glowing deep red one by one. The ritual was completing itself. Master Wei's soul screamed desperately, "Now!" Jian Mo forced himself back to his feet. Blood ran down the side of his face as he pulled out the final talisman hidden inside his robe. A soul-severing seal. Forbidden. Permanent. Once activated, it would destroy both the vessel and anything possessing it. The entity suddenly stopped moving. For the first time, it looked afraid. "You would destroy him too?" it whispered. Jian Mo stared directly into Master Wei's hollow eyes. Then he answered quietly. "He made his choice long before I arrived." The entity shrieked and rushed toward him again. But this time, Jian Mo stepped forward instead of backward. At the exact moment the possessed body reached him, Jian Mo slammed the soul-severing talisman directly onto Master Wei's chest. Everything stopped. The temple fell completely silent. Then the talisman ignited. Blinding golden light exploded through the prayer hall as black smoke burst violently from Master Wei's body. The entity screamed in absolute fury, its voice shaking the entire mountain. The walls cracked apart. The summoning symbols shattered. Every bell in the temple rang at once before suddenly breaking apart. And behind the screaming darkness, Jian Mo saw Master Wei one final time. The old Taoist stood peacefully within the light now. No fear, no pain, only relief. He gave Jian Mo a small grateful nod. Then both the soul and the body vanished into the flames together. A massive shockwave tore through the temple, and suddenly everything became still. By dawn, the storm had finally passed. Cold morning fog drifted through the ruined mountain temple, while ash floated quietly across the courtyard like black snow. The prayer hall was almost completely destroyed. Half the roof had collapsed during the ritual, and the wooden pillars were covered in deep cracks burned into the surface by spiritual fire. But the whispering was gone. The bells were silent, and for the first time in days, the mountain felt still again. Jian Mo stood alone in the center of the ruined hall, staring at the black scorch marks where Master Y's body had disappeared. No corpse remained behind. No blood, no bones, only ash. Several surviving disciples slowly emerged from hiding as sunlight crept over the mountains. Their faces looked pale and exhausted, but the terror inside their eyes had finally begun fading. One of them approached carefully. "Is it over?" he asked quietly. Jian Mo did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the broken temple doors where the forest beyond remained hidden beneath heavy mist. Finally, he nodded once. For now. The disciples gathered what remained of the temple scriptures and sacred objects before sunrise fully reached the courtyard. Together, they collected the ashes left behind by Master Wei and placed them inside a small wooden urn wrapped carefully in yellow prayer cloth. Near the edge of the mountain stood an ancient pine tree overlooking the valleys below. That was where they buried him. No grand ceremony followed, no chanting crowds, only a few frightened disciples standing silently beneath the cold wind while incense smoke drifted into the morning sky. Jian Mo remained beside the grave long after the others left. Master Wei had once been feared across entire provinces. People called him a legendary Taoist, capable of sealing demons and controlling wandering spirits. But in the end, he had simply been a man who understood the cost of opening the wrong door too late. Jian Mo crouched beside the fresh grave and noticed something partially buried beneath the ashes near the urn. A talisman, burned around the edges but still intact. He picked it up carefully. The symbol written across the paper was not a summoning seal, nor a protection seal. It was a soul-anchored talisman, a final safeguard designed to prevent wandering spirits from losing themselves completely between worlds. Master Wei must have prepared it before abandoning his body. Not to save himself, but to make sure he would never become the thing inside the coffin. Jian Mo folded the talisman slowly and placed it inside his coat. Then he turned toward the ruined temple one final time. The mountain wind moved softly through the broken prayer banners, creating faint whisper-like sounds across the courtyard. For a brief moment, Jian Mo thought he heard footsteps behind him. He looked back immediately. Nothing, only fog drifting between the pine trees. Still, something felt wrong. Not dangerous, not hostile, just unfinished. As Jian Mo walked down the mountain path, he remembered the final thing Master Wei said inside the mirror world. Empty things always invite something inside. Most people feared losing their lives, but perhaps losing the soul was worse. Because once something learns how to wear a human body, it never truly stops searching for another one. Far behind him, deep within the forest surrounding Black Pine Village, a temple bell rang once. Dong!
Shadows crawl where the light won't go. A silent wind, it starts to grow.